I bet you didn't know how powerful a simple paper boat could be. Their love was never meant for grand declarations. It was quiet, like the gentle stream where they spent their afternoons. Ethan and Grace found a language all their own, one spoken not in words but in shared silence and knowing glances. The world around them was loud and demanding, a place of expectations and pressures. But by that stream, under the shade of an old willow tree, they found a sanctuary. Time seemed to slow down, and the only thing that mattered was the steady, comforting presence of the other. Their connection was a simple truth, as natural and unassuming as the smooth stones that lined the water's edge, polished over years of patient currents. It was Grace who first brought the paper, a single sheet torn carefully from a notebook. She showed Ethan how to fold it, her fingers moving with a delicate precision he found absolutely mesmerizing. Soon, it became their ritual. They would sit together not needing to speak and fold paper boats. Each crease held a silent wish, a secret hope for the future they imagined. They wrote small messages on the inside, words meant only for the water to carry away. These were not grand promises, but simple dreams, a hope for a good day, a wish for happiness, a shared thought about the stars they'd watched that night. Their little fleet of paper boats became a symbol of their bond. Each vessel, launched into the current, was an act of faith. They would watch them float away, bobbing and turning until they disappeared around the bend. It was a game, but it was also something more profound. It was their way of sending their dreams out into the world together, a quiet promise that no matter where life took them, a part of them would always be sailing on that gentle stream. The paper boats carried the weight of everything they couldn't say, a silent testament to a love that was as deep and steady as the water itself. Ethan remembered the way the sunlight would filter through the willow leaves, casting dancing patterns on the ground. He remembered the soft sound of the paper as they folded it, a sound that became the soundtrack to their happiest memories. Their love didn't need an audience, it thrived in the peaceful solitude of their special place. It was a love built on small moments, a shared smile, a light touch of hands as they reached for the same piece of paper, the comfortable silence that only two people who truly understand each other can share. It was simple, it was pure, and it was theirs. The end came without warning, as sudden and disruptive as a summer storm. There was no dramatic farewell, no tearful goodbye at a train station. Grace's family was moving. It was a decision made by adults, a practical choice that had no room for the quiet love of two teenagers. One day, she was there, sitting by the stream, her laughter mingling with the sound of the water. The next, she was gone. The news came to Ethan through a friend, a second-hand message that felt cold and impersonal. Her house was empty, the windows dark, leaving behind a silence that was heavier than any words could ever be. Ethan was left standing by the stream alone. The willow tree seemed to droop a little lower, its branches heavy with unspoken words. He held a half-folded piece of paper in his hand, a boat that would never be finished, a message that would never be sent. The world kept spinning, people kept moving, and he was expected to do the same. So he did. He finished school, found a job, and built a life for himself. But a small, quiet part of him remained by that stream, forever waiting for a goodbye that never came. The memories were not a burden, but a soft, persistent echo in the back of his mind. Grace, too, moved on, in a new city, far from the familiar comfort of the willow tree and the gentle stream. She learned to build a new life. She made new friends, pursued her own dreams, and eventually found a different kind of love, one that was spoken and shared in the open. Yet, sometimes on a quiet evening, she would find herself thinking of that stream. She would remember the feeling of the smooth paper in her hands and the comforting presence of the boy who understood her without needing a single word. Her new life was good. It was full. But the memories of her past were a part of who she had become. Years turned into a decade. Life has a way of filling the empty spaces. New joys, new challenges, and new relationships defined their separate worlds. The sharp sting of their sudden separation faded into a dull, gentle ache of nostalgia. They both grew up, their paths diverging so completely that it felt as if their time by the stream belonged to another lifetime. A story about two different people. They carried the memory not with sadness, but with a quiet reverence, a beautiful, unfinished chapter in the books of their lives that they had learned to accept. In the modern world, no one is ever truly gone. A friend's suggestion on a social media site, a name that looked familiar, a profile picture that held a ghost of a remembered smile. It was Grace who sent the first message. It was short, simple, and hesitant. "Ethan, is that you? It's been a long time." His heart skipped a beat, not with the fire of old love, but with the warm glow of a rediscovered memory. He wrote back, and just like that, a bridge was built across the years, connecting two very different shores. They were strangers in a way, but with a shared, sacred history. Their conversations were careful, respectful. They spoke of their lives now, their careers, their families, their homes. Ethan learned about her husband and her children, and she learned about his life, the path he had chosen. There was an unspoken rule between them, a boundary that neither of them ever considered crossing. They were not trying to rekindle a flame. They were simply two old friends catching up, filling in the pages that had been left blank for so long. The connection was still there, but it had changed, matured into something different. A gentle friendship built on a foundation of mutual respect. They never talked about what if. They didn't need to. The past was a beautiful place to visit, but not a place to live. They spoke of the stream, of the willow tree, and of the paper boats. They laughed about how serious they had been, how important those little rituals had felt. Sharing the memories took away their power to haunt, transforming them from something lost into something treasured. It was a relief to know that she was happy, and she felt the same knowing he had found his own way. Their conversations were a form of healing they didn't even know they needed. Each message was a small gift, a confirmation that what they had shared was real and that it had mattered. It wasn't a romance reignited, it was a friendship acknowledged. They were two adults who had once been two children sharing a dream by a stream. Now they could look back on that dream with fondness and gratitude, free from the weight of regret or longing. Their connection was no longer about a shared future, but about honouring a shared past, and in doing so, they gave each other a quiet, unexpected peace. The conversations became a quiet ritual, much like the folding of the paper boats had been. A message every few weeks, a shared photo of a sunset or a child's birthday party. It was a gentle rhythm, a background hum of friendship that brought a sense of completeness to their lives. They were honouring their history, not trying to rewrite it. By acknowledging the past openly and honestly, they stripped it of any lingering sorrow. The unspoken goodbye that had once echoed with silence was finally replaced by the warm, steady sound of friendly words exchanged across the distance. Ethan realized that the peace he sought was not in getting Grace back, but in knowing she was okay. Her happiness did not diminish what they had shared, it validated it. Their young love had been a stepping stone, a beautiful, formative experience that had helped shape them into the people they had become. To wish for a return to that time would be to misunderstand its purpose. Its value was not in its continuation, but in its memory. It was a perfect, preserved moment, And now they could look at it together from a distance, appreciating its beauty without needing to possess it. For Grace, reconnecting with Ethan was like finding a missing piece of her own story. For so long, that chapter of her life had felt abruptly torn. Now she could see it as a whole. Talking to him allowed her to integrate that part of her past into the woman she was today. She could share a story with her husband about a boy she once knew, not as a secret, but as a fond memory. The friendship gave her permission to cherish the past without feeling disloyal to her present. It was a testament to the fact that love can change forms, evolving from youthful romance into a mature, respectful friendship. Their online chats became a space for closure, a quiet and private ceremony that no one else needed to witness. It wasn't about dramatic confessions or rehashing old feelings. It was about mutual understanding. They were closing a circle that had been left open for years. The sadness of their separation was gently washed away by the tide of their new connection, leaving behind only the smooth, polished stones of good memories. They found peace not by erasing the past, but by embracing it for what it was, a beautiful beginning to two separate happy stories. One afternoon, years after they had reconnected online, Ethan found himself walking by that same stream. The willow tree was older, its branches thicker and hanging lower, but it was still there. The water flowed with the same steady, peaceful rhythm. He had an urge, a quiet calling he couldn't ignore. He took a single sheet of crisp white paper from his pocket. It wasn't a spontaneous act, but a thoughtful one. He had been thinking about it for a while. This was something he needed to do, not for her, but for himself. A final, gentle acknowledgement of the journey. He sat on the familiar bank, the cool earth grounding him. His fingers, now older and more certain, folded the paper with a muscle memory that surprised him. He made each crease sharp and deliberate. He didn't write a message inside this time. There was no need. The boat itself was the message. It was a symbol of everything they had shared and everything they had become. It held the memory of their youthful dreams, the pain of their separation, the comfort of their reconnection, and the peace of their acceptance. It was a vessel of gratitude, not of longing. He gently placed the boat on the water's surface. It bobbed for a moment, then caught the current and began its slow journey downstream. He watched it go, a solitary white shape against the sparkling water. There was no sadness in the act, only a profound sense of peace. This was not a goodbye to Grace, the friend he now knew. It was a goodbye to the ghost of the past, to the unfinished story that had lingered in the quiet corners of his heart for so long. He was letting it go, not because it was painful, but because it was complete. Some goodbyes don't happen in the moment of parting. They arrive years later, quietly, without an audience. They come when you are ready to fully understand what you are letting go of and can do so with a heart full of respect and kindness. As the last paper boat disappeared around the bend, Ethan smiled. The story was not over. It had simply found its true ending. It was a peaceful conclusion, a recognition that some loves are not meant to last a lifetime, but are perfect in the time they are given. And that, he knew, was more than enough.